Good morning, everyone. We're going to get going. Uh, my name is Andy Terenchev. I'm senior account executive with Long Building Technologies, and welcome to our first virtual coffee break. It's the first in a series that we're going to have over the next few weeks with a focus on building technologies from automation to security systems. Uh, Please be sure if you want to ask questions to use the chat function. I think that would be great. First, a couple summary high-level points about Long. Been in business for over 50 years and really working with building automation, servicing other technologies to help our clients run more efficient buildings. We're a private company headquartered in Denver, beautiful Denver. Lots of offices throughout the Mountain States, as well as Seattle, Portland, and beautiful Anchorage. I've never been there. Someday I want to go there. In addition to that, we are a private company, family owned and run by Jeff Long, wonderful person who's really dedicated to his clients, as we all are, and to his employees. As we know today in the facilities business, we are all facing difficult times. It's hard because of the pandemic. But so what we want to do is to use technology as well as our knowledge to make things better, to make things more positive. A good example is my wonderful wife. She's a math teacher in the Mercer Island high school in their school district. And she gets up every morning at 7 to go to work. She wakes me up. It's terrible. But she gets there and she's teaching remotely, which is great. It's relatively safe. But what happens when in-person teaching starts again? And it will, it has to. Students have to go back to school. We all know that. So how do we make things, nothing's perfect, but how do we make building occupants feel safer in terms of going back to schools, office spaces, by using established technologies, nothing new. Right? There's technologies out there that we can all use to improve air quality, to improve the overall environment of the building. Back to my wife. She recently got a survey from the Teachers Union with regard to key points when teachers start to go back to school with their students. One of the survey questions was about air quality with a 1 to 5 scale, right? And she chose a 5 because I'm always talking about air quality. Which also drives her absolutely crazy, right? That's what I love. I want to make things safer. Having said that, today we have Jamie Love that works for Air Reps, one of our really important partners with regard to some of these solutions. He's going to be talking about their GPS ionization solution, which is really used to mitigate the spread of pathogens. Also, Jamie has assisted as a teacher. So we all know someone that's a first responder. I don't care whether they work in a hospital, they work in a school, they even work with Long. We're an essential business. So having said that, Jamie, go ahead and start talking about how an ionization can be a really great solution for a lot of schools, a lot of commercial office spaces, a lot of hospitals started using it. So all yours.
Yeah, hi everybody. Good morning. I want to thank Long for having me. Appreciate the opportunity. But let's cut to the chase. I think what we're dealing with right now is obviously unprecedented, and ASHRAE's come out and they've talked about ways that you can improve indoor air quality in your building. And from a facility standpoint, if you're running that system, you know as well as more than anybody that some of the guidelines that they've given or suggestions may not work for you. Specifically, by changing the ASHRAE recommendation was to change to MERV 13 filters and bring in more outside air. Well, we all know that has lots of impacts. So what you're dealing with when you have MERV 13 filters is you're going to have a larger static pressure drop. You're going to have more energy use being consumed. You also have to condition the air that's being brought in. So that's significant impact. My sister is a teacher. So, one thing Andy and I were talking about yesterday was, the teachers and the staff and the facilities groups and, everybody who works at the school, they're in the school buildings longer than anybody, longer than kids. And so it's important to me. I have a vested interest to make sure my sister's safe as well. So why are we talking about ionization today? It's another tool. It's another method that you can use to clean the air. And how does it work? Pretty simple. Ionization, it's natural. It happens all around you. There's ions in the air right now. All an ion is a positive or negatively charged particle or atom. So those exist. The space that you're in right now probably has, a couple hundred ions per cubic centimeter. When you induce more ions into the space, it helps clean the air. How does that happen? Through agglomeration. So what GPS does, or needle point bipolar ionization, it creates artificially through electric pulse. Excuse me. What it does is it creates a bunch of ions that are introduced into the space through your HVAC system. Typically, you'll see that on an air handler, on a blower wheel. They even have duct-mounted options, a universal power supply. So it's fairly easy installation and very affordable. So what you're doing is you're introducing ions into the space. The ions will attach themselves because they're trying to become neutral. So if it's a positive or a negative one, it's going to seek out stuff like dust, dander, pollen, mold, all those things, including pathogens. As it grabs onto these particles, they become bigger. It creates a snowball effect. Now that the particle is larger, it either drops to the floor out of the breathing zone and collects like dust, or it's now large enough to be influenced by the air. So it's pulled back to the return where it can be captured by a filter. Typically what we see on filters in a building are MERV 8. MERV 8 is simply a 30% efficient filter, which is really just designed to keep the equipment safe. It is not designed to clean the air by any means. It's really just to, protect the equipment. So when ASHRAE says let's put in MERV 13s, that's fine. MERV 13 is a more efficient filter. It's a 50%er, meaning it allows 50% bypass. So you can do that. There's a cost involved in that for the MERV 13 filters. There's independent studies showing that with needlepoint bipolar ionization, that a MERV 8 filter will act, or there's greater efficiency than a MERV 13 when you have GPS. Why is that important? Well, you continue to use your MERV 8 filters and get the efficiency of a MERV 13. There's a significant cost savings there. You're also not introducing more static pressure to your system. So your fans shouldn't be running harder, your pumps, everything associated with it. So that will help drive energy savings. Another byproduct of GPS is you get odor control. I have it in my house on my own furnace. I put it in for my dad, several clients. Half my office has it. When my wife was pregnant, we recently had a baby girl, and 9 weeks yesterday. So she's really little. But when my wife was pregnant, the odor control was, when we cooked, I do a lot of the cooking. Just in our home, the smell would come up through the return and land in our bedroom. So if I cooked bacon, it smelled like bacon when I went to sleep at night. So it's not instantaneous. It doesn't happen immediately, but you can cook, and when you're done cooking, it doesn't smell like it, a couple hours later. So we see lots of reports of odor control. It's been really helpful in that. And as far as pathogen controls goes, yeah, absolutely. GPS has been used. Boeing reached out to us, excuse me, inquiring about the technology. They wanted to talk about using it on their airplanes as they came out of the factory. We got them in contact with GPS through their Boeing's affiliation with the military. They actually ran testing down in California, and they actually had access to the COVID-19 strain, or SARS-CoV-2. So they replicated an office environment. They replicated a fuselage of an airplane, and they have proven that it can kill COVID-19 or the SARS-CoV-2 strain 99.4% in 30 minutes. So it works. It attacks the surface proteins of the molecules, and it renders them ineffective. So just like you would look at UV, it can kill things when it's dosed or has enough exposure to UV light. Same thing with ions. If there's enough ions around the particles, you're gonna eventually kill that virus. So there's a bunch of third-party testings on it. So Really what you get with needle point bipolar ionization products with GPS, you get fast and affordable installation. It's safe because ions happen naturally. You're going to see an immediate reduction in odor, which is an awesome, I can tell you firsthand, it's great. And then it also, pathogen control, and you can see real energy savings. Prior to the pandemic, it was used to reduce outside air. Now, what we're seeing now is suggestions of bringing in more outside air, to dilute the space. But I think there's still an energy savings component there because you don't have to go to MERV 13. And even in the ASHRAE documents for reopening schools, if you guys don't have it, we'd be happy to share that with you. I've given it to several clients, but it's really thorough recommendations on what to do. Covers all sorts of types of equipment, how you should address that for reopening of K through 12 and higher education. But they specifically talk about if your system is not designed to just simply put in MERV 13s and bring in a bunch more air, that there are other solutions out there, including in-room units and ionization products, as well as polarized media at the filtration. The thing that I think is unique about GPS that we're seeing is that you're playing offense, right? So we are treating the space. That's where all the dirty air is. You're bringing in fresh outside air. It's typically not contaminated. So you're talking about contamination coming from the space. You're talking about contamination coming from the recirculated air, which originated from the space. So how do we treat the space? We ionize it. When it comes back through the system, it's going to be caught in the filters. And that's why I think it's a really unique product, because traditionally what we've done to capture dirt, dust, mold, all these things, pathogens, is you're waiting for it to get back to the air handler. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, does it? So if we can play really good offense by treating the space, and then you can potentially leave your filters in or upgrade to a more efficient filter, you're doing a really good job of cleaning that air, and it works.
That's great, Jamie. Really good summary. Couple of questions, actually. I know maybe folks are sending in some questions, but I had some that I wrote overnight while I was thinking about this over my glass of wine. That was
sure.
So I've heard before that ionization products, especially when they were being used in hospitals early on in terms of the I know the technology's been around since the early 1900s, but does it emit ozone? Because could be a problem.
Yeah, so no, it does not. It's GPS products are certified UL 867 and 2998 as ozone-free technologies. What makes GPS a little bit different than other competitors that have similar products is that they control their output under 12.07. The EV is contained under 12.07. What does that mean? It means anytime you're putting more of electric charge into the air that exceeds that amount, you're oxidizing air, and that is what creates ozone. So by, in a sense, throttling down the output, you're not exceeding that limit. So you're never going to go over 12.07, meaning you're not going to create ozone. So no, these are not ozone generators. The other thing that's cool about this product too, excuse me, it's not an and or, it's you can use this with UV light. If you have UV in your system, great. You can still use GPS. It's only enhancing it. Some people say I have polarized media at my filtration, at my filters. Great. You can still use GPS. So it's an adder.
Yeah, and we got about a minute left, so I want to keep it to 50 minutes. That's our goal.
Sure.
So another question, you mentioned energy. Does it increase energy cost? And I think the answer is probably the opposite, but let us know about how energy is potentially increased or reduced.
Yeah, it's going to be, I would say it's going to be probably reduced, because by using it, first of all, it hardly draws any amps. I mean, it takes like nothing to power these things. So from an energy standpoint, specifically compared to UV can draw a considerable amount of energy. So just just there, you're gonna use some. But no, these things don't draw any amps. And again, back to not increasing your static pressure, which is a driver of energy use. Keeping your static pressure down by leaving in your MERV8 filters and using this product, you're going to save energy.
Yeah, that's great. In terms of filters, I have a bigger. Somebody asked about filters, but I'm going to mix it up with a couple of things in terms of does ionization degrade filters, insulation, or wire coatings?
No, that's a UV situation. So one of the recommendations coming from ASHRAE was, you can certainly look at UV as an option to help sterilize or clean air. But when you do that, not every system's set up for it. If your rooftop unit or whatever you're trying to apply UV to is not designed to handle UV, you can certainly damage wires, damage filtration, damage anything that's in that wasn't designed to have UV light being shown on it. So UPS is not going to cause anything like that.
Perfect. That's good to know. And what is the optimal ion count in a space? How do you measure that?
Yeah, you can do an ion counter, ion verification. I was actually at T-Mobile Park. We did an installation down for the Seattle Mariners before the players came back. And what we did there was we did a baseline reading for in-room. And then we ended up doing after we had the units installed, we did a verification. So yeah, you're looking for 1,200 to 2,000. That's going to work. You're going to start seeing some serious results with that. Obviously, if you got more in the space, better. That's great. So we've done applications at Ivar's restaurants where they're seeing over 20,000 per cubic centimeter, which is fabulous. But yeah, 1,200 to 2,000 is great. I think they even published that 2,000 is a pretty good place to try to start. If you're around there, that's great. Like I said, what you're sitting in right now in your office, wherever you're watching this, you're probably got a couple hundred ions around you right now.
Yeah, that's what you mentioned. That's great. Well, listen, I think we've gone a little bit over our time, but appreciate everybody attending. We've had, it looks like 18 participants, which I think is terrific for our first coffee break. And we look forward to seeing some of you again over the next few weeks. I think I just love this format. 15 minutes, no PowerPoints. We love that. So have a good rest of the day, guys, and thank you for attending. Thank you.